Everybody, thank you very much for coming back tonight to the Pigsty. Tonight we have the pleasure of having Susan back with us. Everybody should know Susan from Divine Disbelief. A couple of weeks ago they were here. If you didn't subscribe, you're getting your ass kicked, but her link's in the description. Make sure you subscribe again. And we're going to focus as best we can this month on women in the community. So we're going to start tonight off with the women of the community with Susan, and we're going to discuss activism. And on that note, we've lost Manda.
Yep. She is frozen.
This fuck my Wi-Fi. I have fucking stupid fucking Wi-Fi. Susan, for those who don't know who you are, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I am Susan. I apparently have a cat that really wants to have her butt in my face. You stay right there. You stay right there. Just sit. Just sit. I am one half of Divine Disbelief. My boyfriend Nathaniel and I have hosted it for probably about a year. We took a little hiatus for a little while there, but we focus on secular news and opinion, and we have been doing a lot more pre-recorded stuff lately. So we are in the middle of a series on the Lucan census right now, which basically, you know, the census of Quirinius and a response video to Inspiring Philosophy. So that's fun. It's a 4-part series for a video that was originally 12 minutes long.
Right. So this may have got a little out of control.
Well, Nathaniel is incredibly thorough. He does a lot of research. He's incredibly smart. So he's like, I want to make sure everything matches. I want to make sure, you know, everything is up to date. I want to make sure that everything is as it should be. And yeah, we should have the next one coming out here within the next couple days. He's finishing up the last little bit of the third episode script. So yeah, that should be fun.
Inspiring Philosophy is I don't know. You can try and be nice and it'll take a wee while to reply. You'll have to be thorough because he's anal retentive and he will pick apart and he will do this, that, and the other. And yes, Amanda's on her way back. Wi-Fi issues.
Well, so funnily enough, Inspiring Philosophy wrote a blog about our videos. Mm-hmm. He did like this super long blog post, like responding to us and stuff, and basically saying how we're wrong on everything that we're asserting. And it's like, I mean, no, we're not.
He's nice like that, though. He is very nice like that. So,
yeah.
Well, taking all that aside, we are here tonight to focus on yourself, Susan. I asked you what was important to you, what was near and dear to your heart, and activism was the first thing you said to me. So we are here tonight to discuss activism. Obviously, with what's going on in America at the minute, there's definitely a lot of protests and things like that. You mentioned that you've been to a few protests yourself.
Yeah, we actually went on Friday because we live in the Portland metro. We live in Oregon, and we went on Friday to participate in the protest that was happening at Revolution Hall. We marched from Rev Hall to Pioneer Park, and Portland has been one of those cities that it hasn't been like as bad as Seattle, but the police have definitely had a very, very extreme presence with the protesters, I think is probably the best way to say it.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing to say as bad as Seattle, because you wouldn't expect Seattle to be, you know, one of those areas.
It's bonkers over there right now. And stop, cat. Obviously, the other thing I'm passionate about is my cat, who is being a jerk right now. Yeah, I mean, I lived in Austin for a little while. I lived in Dallas for a little while. So you see these. Don't step on my keyboard. What are you? I'm gonna kick you out of here. I swear on my life.
You see, this is why sometimes you need to tell the pets to just fuck off for a minute.
She was like meowing. She was like meowing outside the door, and I was just like, I can't have you meowing while I'm doing this. Please don't.
Meowing, but my dog has a really deep, loud bark. So yeah, it happens.
Yeah, that sounds like our corgi Benny. Like Benny's very much like, I'm ferocious, and it's like, no, you're not.
So the police are aggressive in Portland?
Yeah, like they have been, tear gassing, even though there's supposed to be supposedly like a moratorium on that for a little while. I know in Seattle, they did like a 30-day thing where they're all like, well, we're not going to use tear gas for 30 days. And they're still using tear gas.
Really?
So,
Of course they are, because they don't give a fuck.
No, they really don't.
I don't understand. Like, clearly the issue right now is, the police are overstepping. So their response is to be violent and aggressive toward peaceful protesters. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, and when we were marching, it was probably about a 2.5-mile march. When we were marching, everybody was peaceful. There were people who were handing out snacks and leading chants and handing out water. And, a lot of them even had masks and stuff for anybody who did not have a mask since, COVID-19.
Yeah.
There were people just handing out all this stuff and like earplugs and stuff like that, because supposedly the Portland Police Department was going to start using the LRADs. It was like the noise things. I don't know exactly what it stands for or what they do, but supposedly they were going to start using those, which is, a form of crowd control. But I don't know. Supposedly they're holding off on that. I'm honestly not entirely sure. Yeah, our stance on it, and it's not just my personal stance or Nathaniel's personal stance. Our shared view of everything that's been going on with all the protests and the police brutality and the murdering of unarmed Black people. Our stance is very much like, we obviously believe that Black Lives Matter. Yes. We obviously believe that the police are... Yes, exactly! I love that activism shirt. I love it earlier. All like, I'm not meaning to be all like boobs. We have a stance of Black Lives Matter. Trans people, trans rights. They are trans women are women, trans men are men. If a person is non-binary, then you use the pronouns they, them. We are big believers in equality and equity and things of that nature, and we have
people's individuality.
Right? Like,
why should it be hard for someone to use a different pronoun? They act like it's people that are against it act like they're being infringed upon because they have to remember to do that. And most people who use different pronouns will understand, like, people mess up, they don't do it on purpose. Like with Junk Shop, I accidentally called them he once. I just did it right there, and I felt terrible about it and apologized profusely. And he just and they see I keep doing it because I'm an idiot. They were just like, it's not a big deal. I know that
the intention behind it.
People do it purposefully. It's the intent is just to be cruel and hateful. Right. Why? What does that do?
Yeah, it just makes, I don't know if it's that they feel that they have to feel superior to the people who they are either dead naming or misgendering or whatever. I don't know if that's it. I genuinely don't know, because I don't have that viewpoint on it. I'm not like, I'm going to go around and, be an asshole to trans people today. Like, no, like that's not my way of thinking.
You see, it's built into these people. They don't wake up in the morning for to actually do that. It's just built into them. I'm recently watching a Russell Hard stand-up show, and he was talking about this, and he made a reference point that when we were growing up and we were kids, there was things and words that we said and did that isn't allowed anymore. And as children, when you're told that, you're like, oh no, you're annoyed maybe because it's your favorite swear word as a child, but you learn and you change, and it's even a 12 or a 13-year-old can understand this. But when you talk to a 25 or a 30 or an adult, it's been so ingrained upon them that it's like, no, I'm not changing. This is the way I am. Which brings about the activism that people do and the protests that people bring forward, because they speak and they talk, and you have your MPs over here, or you have your, you know, senators and stuff over in America, and it feels like they just don't listen. Making a reference point back to the UK, this week there was a statue in Bristol. I don't know if you've seen that. I tweeted about it. Yeah,
I saw that, and they threw it in the river.
Yeah, now that from what I gathered from Stool, they've been working for years to try and bring that down, and nobody has been listening. They've been making an actual conscious effort to stop it from being taken down, because it's changing history, and not as extreme as what you would find with the fundamentalists in America about rewriting the Civil War, but making a conscious effort to not bring it down. And then with the whole explosion of what's happening now at the minute, people just went up, put fucking ropes around it, ripped it down. Not the police stood back, the police watched. You know, they knew that intervening would escalate the situation, and at the end of the day, it is a wee bit of vandalism. It's maybe not the best way to achieve something, but people are sick and tired. You know, they've been screaming, they've been shouting, they've been trying to do it the legal way, and people just aren't listening.
Yeah. And a lot of people are saying, how can you, support these protests, and how can you, support people who are rioting and looting, and that's just this typical talking point. So, if somebody is saying that to me, I'm saying, it's like, do you value property more than you value human lives? And do you understand that peaceful protests have been tried for years? Everybody likes to point to Martin Luther King and, marches that happened and everything, but they don't remember the violent parts of the civil rights movement, because it has been whitewashed. Phrase fully intended. It's we want to remember Martin Luther King as this, strictly peace and strictly, nonviolence and that sort of activism. But that man is the one who said the riot is the language of the unheard.
Yeah.
And that's
so the civil rights movement wouldn't have moved, unfortunately, it's not a great thing to think, but it wouldn't have moved forward the way it had there not been rioting. And that being said, I saw this video the other day. I was telling MathPig about this, that they showed that these protesters that were up, there's, a line of police and a line of protesters, and the protesters were screaming in the policemen's faces and get pushed up against them, and the police officer just stood there and took it. And they showed the video, and then at the end they're like, oh, you know why nobody's getting hit right now? Because this was from a month ago when they were protesting about, having to wear masks.
Yeah.
So, they were actually getting physical with the police, and the police stood there and took it. But now you have people that are just literally standing on the side of the road or kneeling on the side of the road with signs, and that's all they're doing. And the police are just fucking swinging at them and shit. And it's it's
such a discrepancy.
See, that's the problem. Like, people are making, we can't have a protest every day. Well, there's a reason there's a protest every day, is because at the moment it's just an explosion. People are so tired because of things like that. Like, you're sitting there with a sign screaming love to people, and the policeman walks across and drags you away. They're trying to control the narrative, control what be's put forward, and at the end of the day, it's just going to make the situation worse. People aren't being heard. That's the problem.
Yeah. And I feel like if we as a society had been listening at all this whole entire time, because I have seen signs from the 50s or 60s that was, an older Black woman holding a sign that said "Stop Police Brutality." And it's like, this is from freaking 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah.
They Black people have been protesting this for longer than that, because if it's enough of a problem that they have to say "Stop Police Brutality" in the 50s and 60s, then, it's been a problem.
Yeah.
It's been a huge problem. So
that's the thing. It explodes. You have the violent protests, well, not violent protests, but it gets to the stage where violence is ensued. You think things that we see on TV now and see on the internet now, these have been happening for that amount of time. The only difference is you didn't have smartphones back in the 60s and 70s, And it explodes, it dies down, the government puts it to the side, it explodes again, it dies down, government pushes to the side, and I think people are just fucking sick and tired of that.
Yeah, and I mean, I can never put myself, and I can never put myself exactly in the shoes of a Black person. I will never know that experience. I will never know what it's like to have to live in the face of the injustices that happen every single day. Every fucking day.
I think about Black mothers a lot because, like, my son has gone to 2 protests so far, and he's 16. And luckily, the protests in my town, the police have joined. It's been, peaceful, and which is surprising considering where I live. I think about the fact that I get worried that Angel will get in trouble with the cops or something if he does something stupid. In fact, he has. His friend he was videotaping one of his friends, hitting light bulbs with something in a parking garage once, so he got in trouble one time. But I worry about him getting in trouble, but I put myself in a Black mother's shoes, and the fact that they have to worry that their child is going to get hurt just because of the color of their skin. That one 12-year-old boy that was climbing into the window of his own home because he forgot his key and was shot and killed, even though he was 12 years old. And clearly, unarmed, but this is a child, an unarmed child. What in that house was worth killing that child over? So that is something that I really think about, because it's heartbreaking. I can't imagine how I would feel just letting Angel go outside if the color of her skin was different.
Yeah. And there's sort of another. I hear an echo. I don't think it's. Did I hear an echo?
A wee bit.
I don't know if I'm going crazy. I was like, I don't know if I'm going crazy. It's potentially possible. And there's a lot associated with activism having to do with Black mothers, because Black women have the highest maternal mortality rate. So that ties into, the other activism and stuff that I've been part of. I worked for Planned Parenthood for a little over a year, and I have raised money for the National Network of Abortion Funds almost every year since 2012. I didn't do it this year because they were doing it a different way, and last year I had the broken ankle. But the reproductive justice movement isn't just about, abortion access. It's about making sure that all of the choices that a pregnant person can make are valued, and all of the choices are fully supported and fully funded, because, the maternal mortality rate of Black mothers is something that has to do with the reproductive justice movement. And, it's not just that, it's about, access to the contraceptives and access to healthcare, because when you take, when you take these things away from specifically, really especially like low-income neighborhoods, when you take them away, it ends up shifting the burden onto usually the Medicaid system, like the state Medicaid systems, which is taxpayer funded, which, is stuff like, the stuff for moms and stuff for kids and stuff like that. It just ends up shifting. It's not like you are preventing people from needing pap smears, and you're not preventing people from needing STI testing, and you're not preventing these things if you defund this stuff. You're not. And there is this misconception that, we don't want dollars, taxpayer dollars to go towards like paying for abortion and stuff like that, which the Hyde Amendment doesn't disallows any federal funding from being used for abortions anyway. But there's all these misconceptions, and I feel like if people actually were to look into not only what like Planned Parenthood does, but like what other clinics, health clinics and sexual wellness clinics in low income areas, like look at everything that they do. Like look at all of these benefits that they are giving to the community, and think about what the repercussions of getting rid of those would be. Like, just think about how much, like, where things would go, because it's not like it just disappears. It's not like it just goes poof. It's like energy. It's got to transfer somewhere.
What if there are so many issues with the pro-life side of the movement, but I think one of the biggest things is the fact that pro-lifers are not pro-lifers. They are pro-birthers.
Yes.
And once those children, they don't give a fuck. Once those kids are born, they don't want to pay that money into Medicaid. They don't want to pay any money to have those children fed. They don't give a fuck. All they care about is, for what I know, most of the time it's religious beliefs or whatever reason, they're against abortion, but once that child is born, they don't give a fuck. And that is on the opposite end of the spectrum. The people like us that are pro-choice, care about not only giving women a choice, but also taking care of the kids that are born. And there's such hypocrisy in it. It is absolutely infuriating. How did you deal with stuff like that when you worked within Planned Parenthood, or as you work in activism, pro-choice activism?
What I've found is a lot of the pro-life arguments, I always hesitate to call it pro-life because I just end up calling it anti-choice, because I'm kind of
go ahead, call that.
Yeah.
A lot of the anti-choice arguments are based on emotion. They're based on what they are told by their pastor. They're based on what they're told by their parents who happen to be anti-choice. They'll be old school about it and be all like, well, back in my day, women couldn't have abortions. And it's all like, no. Women have had abortions for a very long time. They're just safe and legal now.
In fact, abortion rates have gone down since Roe v. in America, at least since Roe v. Wade have passed.
Yeah. And that has to do a lot with access to contraceptives. Like in Colorado, they did a program with, having far wider access to contraceptives, and specifically IUDs, which IUDs are fantastic, which I personally highly recommend. They are wonderful. But they had this program where they expanded access to the long-acting contraceptives, and they found that the rate of pregnancy, of unintended pregnancy, reduced so dramatically that they were just all like, this is effectively like it's not a problem in Colorado now. I mean, it's still a problem regardless of where you go, unintended pregnancy that, ends up, with whatever situation. So it's
teenagers will be teenagers, like.
It's biological urges, man. You cannot, most people, now I do not want to ever discount people who are asexual. I never want to discount them. Most people feel completely natural biological urges to have sex. And humans are one of the few species that actually has sex for fun instead of strictly reproduction.
Yeah, they're also dolphins, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's dolphins.
Dolphins are smart enough to get high on pufferfish as well, though. So.
That's true. That's true. I hear dolphins are assholes too. So I don't know. I got nothing. Yeah, dolphins are dicks.
Sorry, but as you say, biological. It's a biological motion, you know, and trying to deny it is just stupid. The whole idea of abstinence works never works. It boils down to education and, as you say, providing services like Planned Parenthood, who not only, you know, do what, you know, are not only there to give the choice to people, but provide condoms, provide contraceptions, give education that you're not going to get in school, that parents are possibly embarrassed to talk to you about, or people are embarrassed to talk about. We're all embarrassed of our bodies, you know, but having them services gives us the ability to educate us and have a better control over it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's actually, I mean, Planned Parenthood, on top of offering, you know, the wellness exams and stuff having to do with general health and sexual health, they also do, like you were saying, they do a lot of stuff having to do with you know, how parents can talk to their kids about sex, and how parents can talk to kids about their bodies, and, you know, puberty and stuff like consent, which is a big thing for kids to understand. Like, you always hear the whole, you know, now go give Uncle so-and-so a hug, or go give Auntie so-and-so a hug, and the kid's like, I don't want to. Well, you have to, because it's the nice thing to do.
Yeah.
It's
You're
about
teaching children that they don't have, you know, domain over their own bodies, and that's not right.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And if you teach kids from a young age, not only that they can say no, and, you know, how to say no, they also learn respect for other people and other people's boundaries. So it's a learning process from a very, very young age.
My daughter's cousin is maybe 8 or 9, I think it is, and she doesn't like giving kisses when she leaves. She'll give you a hug, you know, and that's just her, and that's just the way it is, and everybody just accepts it. You know, you're not going to force the wee girl to do that.
My family was the kind that kissed you in the fucking mouth, and I hated that.
Oh, no.
One of the really awesome things about Planned Parenthood, aside from, you know, the education, the STD tests, and the massive amount of health services they offer, is they also they're able to discuss things like the health benefits of sexual expression. Like in '94, there was like a worldwide symposium of what they called sexology, where these sexual, they were called sexologists, doctors, got together and came up with this list of reasonings why sex isn't just about, you know, biological urges, that it's good for your health in many ways, including, and good for your relationship, good for your mental health, and all of these things.
Good for your heart.
And I think it's really interesting that, you know, it's they're able to expand outside of just like, you know, this is what sex is for, but to share with the public that, you know, sex is good for you on many levels. And, you know, there's just so many layers to Planned Parenthood, and the fact that it gets this rap as being an abortion clinic purely when only 3% of their services are abortions. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's specifically Planned Parenthood that is gone after by the pro-lifers?
I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, Margaret Sanger, who
amazing.
In some senses, in the
it's
sense
amazing
of like
what she did, but yeah, she did have some
shitty person in this.
Yes.
Which Planned Parenthood
I get that totally
acknowledges. Yeah, they fully acknowledge it. They're just like, we understand that, you know, there were a ton of aspects that she was shitty. Like, they acknowledge that. They know it's part of their history.
In fact, it's one of the first things that they talk about is that, yes, she you know, she founded our organization, but everybody has problems. Like, it's just a really, really open way of saying that. Instead of, you know, what you would find on, I don't want to say on the right, but it's true, on the right, they would deify their founder and, you know, say they were perfect in every way.
Yeah, regardless of what shit they did.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying, what in terms of founding Planned Parenthood, was amazing because it not only opened the door for reproductive rights, but it also helped pave the way for civil rights and other and women's voting and stuff like that. Or not women's voting, women's rights in general in the law and stuff like that. The founding Planned Parenthood and what she did, it was almost a butterfly effect of rights for all Americans.
Oh yeah.
So you find
and they have all the talking points and everything about, specifically about Margaret Sanger, and they have the talking points about abortion in general, and like I said, so many of their arguments are based on emotion rather than logic and facts.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
They are more likely to use scientifically inaccurate terms. They will never call it, they will never call it a fetus. They will always say it's a baby.
Yeah.
Every time I know I'm in a discussion with somebody and they use the term baby to describe a fetus, and I'm like, you're hopeless. Like, I'm not, there is no point in having this conversation with you because you're not going to change your mind. But one thing that Nathaniel has definitely instilled in me is it's always good to have the conversation, even if you're not going to change someone's mind, because you don't know who's watching. Mm-hmm. You don't know, maybe like, I don't know how I feel about this. So, I'm going to pay attention to this and listen to this argument that these people are having, see what's more, more logical, what makes more sense. So
that's why you find an awful lot of activism in general, whether it's from trans rights or gay rights or women's rights or child behaviour or anything like that. It's people feel the need to do this because, as you say, Susan, when you break it down and you look at the logical points of it and the freedom that people deserve, you deserve to go out and not be beat up. You deserve to have the choice to do this. You deserve to not be picked on because of your colour of your skin. These are basic rights that everybody should be accepted to, and we do try and promote that. And when we go to the point of activism, it's because we've been using these actual arguments, because we've been putting these good points forward and providing truth, and they're just not listening.
Yeah, everybody's so stuck in this mentality of, they long for, what they call the good old days and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know if you realize that the good old days weren't really the good old days.
It's nostalgia. Yeah, it's everybody is nostalgia about whenever you had your peak time. It always says school time is the best time of your years, and it's always the music was better back in the day, although that is actually true. But
yeah,
that's fair.
Everybody has these points. We all grow up, we all realize, and we all want from when we were a kid, because whenever you were a kid, everything moved faster. It was brilliant. You had no responsibilities. You didn't have to go out and work. You just went and played. You came home, you got your dinner. Of course, these things are going to be better, but it's perspective and nostalgia that makes us want these. It's not actually the facts.
Right, exactly. And I think people have such a hard time letting go of that, and just like ideas that they may have, and prejudices and biases that they may have. Biases, I don't know the term. The
biases, that's fine.
Biases, there we go. I was all like, which one is it? I don't remember.
Words are hard. I know that.
They're very, very difficult a lot of the time. People have such a hard time letting go of whatever preconceived notions they have of, whatever. And when it's a subject like abortion, and when it's a subject like, reproductive justice and things of that nature, it just makes it more difficult because, like I said, so many of the arguments are based on emotion. Yeah. And it's difficult to sort of counter the emotion so much. It's so difficult to counter it a lot of the time, because that's what gets a person right here. That's what a person will react to, on the most base level.
Yeah.
Is their emotion.
And yet facts don't care about, I know it's trite, but facts don't care about your feelings. They really don't.
But your emotions can be such a driving point. Like, I know that there has been at least one shooting at a Planned Parenthood or an abortion clinic where people have been killed, and the idea of that man is, I'm pro-life, so I'm here to kill people. And
right?
Yeah, but it's the emotion that drives them. They don't see the logical, the fallacy in it, the fact that I'm pro-life, but I'm here to kill people. That doesn't matter. I'm killing people who don't agree with me. I'm killing people who are hurting babies and this and murdering and all this other bullshit. And it all gets compartmentalized in their head, and the feelings run. The feelings are in charge. That's the drive.
Yeah.
I don't like change.
Yeah. And I mean, I get the whole don't like change thing, because I'm very much a don't like change person. But I mean, and one specific abortion provider that was murdered was Dr. George Tiller. He was actually killed coming out of church. He was very active in his community and his church and everything like that. And somebody felt a need to kill him, to murder him, because they did not agree with his profession. And that's a very real thing for abortion providers. It's a very, very real thing. There's a number of them that I follow on Twitter that, they're very, very open about it. They don't say where they live a lot of the time, but they're very open about it. They're just like, look, this is an issue that permeates throughout our culture, because it's not just tied to abortion. It's tied to the cycle of poverty, and how if somebody doesn't have the right to choose, then it makes it less likely for them to be able to break out of the cycle of poverty. They might find themselves basically stuck a lot of the time. And everybody says, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which is such bullshit. Such bullshit. I hate that phrase so much.
Because it's actually it's literally impossible, and that's the point of the phrase. Even though people don't seem to understand that,
Right. Yeah.
It's stupid. It's so stupid.
But at the end of the day, not to go against that phrase completely, and I'm not a big proponent of it 100%, but when someone asks you for help and you try and help them, as the movie says, help me to help you. You do have to put a wee bit of effort in, and sometimes people can just go, oh, well, fuck that, I'm not pulling my shoes on, and they just ignore, and they expect things to be done for them. I find an awful lot in the society at the minute, especially around, a younger generation, that there is an awful lot of things that can be done for them and want to be done for them. Now, maybe that's just me being old and back in the good old days and that sort of things, but, I've seen kids walking up the street and they're overweight, and their mother is carrying their school bag and their PE kit for them, and they're shouting abuse at their mother. Everything does not need to be done for you. Put the bag in his back and make the cunt carry it himself.
It's like, just make the kid actually do shit. And I mean, that could be an entirely different show about kids.
Yeah.
And what I think about kids. I like kids, don't get me wrong. I just don't want them myself. So
I could let you have mine. I mean, you only got 2 years left till he's an adult, so.
Yeah.
Mine's actually trying to sleep about 20 foot away from me and through a floor, which is why I've been so quiet.
Oh no. Yeah, like it the whole thing with reproductive justice and being part of the cycle of poverty just goes back to what current protests are about. It's all just basically one big, entangled thing, ball, whatever, mess, basically. So much of those parts of society are tied up in not just stuff with reproductive justice, but also stuff having to do with, religious freedom and freedom from religion and shit like that, which is my great segue into talking about the atheist stuff. I shouldn't have pointed that out because now the segue is shitty.
Okay, bring it on, honey.
Bring it on. It's all your show. This is all about you. Go for it.
So I had also done, I have a lot of, sort of things that I care a great deal about because, you can care about more than one thing at a time. You really can, I promise. So one of the big things I've always really cared about is stuff having to do with like separation of church and state and dealing with, this idea of like Christian nationalism and things of that nature. And, America's a Christian nation and blah, 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 blah. And it's just all like, no, it's not. It's a secular document. Anyway. So what I had done for a little while is I was one of the assistant state directors for American Atheists for a little while back in Texas. Cool. And in Texas, that was
I'm a little jealous about that, but
I mean, Texas, Texas, just fucking Texas, man. Just
Georgia.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I feel like if there's anybody who understands.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. But when you have a governor and a lieutenant governor and an attorney general that are, making it obvious their bias towards Christianity and Christian religion and Christians in general, it makes it so that it's hard for somebody who is a religious minority, not just atheists, anybody who's a religious minority in general. It makes it really, really hard for them to feel welcome. It makes it really hard for somebody to feel accepted. So I've always been a really big proponent of like atheist communities and stuff like that. I had gotten involved with the atheist community in my hometown of Corpus Christi. They're Corpus Christi atheists, which is really funny that it's literally a city called the Body of Christ.
Yeah. Think of that.
Atheists. Like, that's funny. But they were the ones who realistically were really the ones who got me going with a lot of my activism. They were the ones who really taught me to give a shit. Yeah. And, these people that I'm still friends with, I'm still friends with so many of them. There are people who are leading a lot of these protests. The black women that I've seen have been, leading a lot of stuff. Pretty much everybody else has been helpers, handing out snacks and water and shit. So many of them care so much, and it rubbed off on me a great deal.
I can't ever see you being a person that doesn't care, though, Susan. You have the biggest fucking heart. You really do.
But we need people like you that do these things and actually go out onto the streets. Because I'll be desperately honest, going to a protest where there's maybe 10,000 people there, that would make me very uncomfortable. I personally, maybe not so much anxiety, but it would just, I wouldn't be great for me, which is why I'm trying to bring voice to it through this. This I can do, But the whole idea is people like
have our ways.
Yeah.
It, speaking to, religious freedom activism, something that happened in my town. Everybody knows I live in Georgia, and the Muslim community in my town, which is very small, but enough that they wanted to build a mosque. And mainly, not even so much for the worship, mainly because they wanted a place to bury their dead. And I fought for that because that's something that shouldn't have to be fought for. That should just be a right. And, I picketed and I did what I could, but it got shot down in my town. And that really broke my heart because I may not, agree with any religion at all, but Muslim, has some pretty bad shit, especially, but they have a right. And the fact that it was like people came out in droves against us, with signs calling them terrorists and shit like that. And that was their reasoning. They don't want to have this mosque in our town because you're bringing all the terrorists here. And it was just
So
fucking
this is why we want more
horrible.
people in the community like Susan and things like that to go out, because if everybody had that idea, like I for a split second I thought whenever I seen these protests, I was like, well, I couldn't do that. But if everybody had that mentality, there wouldn't be 30,000 people there. There wouldn't be these people trying to make the voices and trying to do it. And if everybody sat in their arses and just went, fuck it, you know, it's the way things are, then
someone
nothing
else
would
will
change.
do it. Yeah. And so we'd actually gone to the protest. We went on Friday. Nathaniel came in our office because we have because this is our office right here. You can see Funko Pops. And then we have the 2 rooms, our bedroom and our office. And he came in here. I was like 20 minutes away from getting off of work because I get off of work at like 4:30 our time, and he goes, I can't stay home anymore. And I was like, what? And he's all like, we have to go to these. We have to go to these protests. And I was like, I'm down. I was like, I will go. I will be there. We took the dogs with us. Everybody loved the dogs because they're corgis. So, everybody loved dogs. And I mean, I have been apathetic in the past. I have just not given a shit about much of anything. I spent so much of my formative years, I guess, as a Christian. And I spent so long just sort of going through the motions a lot of the time with the Christianity. I never felt a need to actually get into stuff until I left religion. And then I was like, there is so much more in this world. There is so much to care about. And so many people need to have people who will be willing to fight for them, will be willing to go to bat for them. Yeah. And I feel like it's something that I am obligated to do as a cis straight white woman. That the woman part of my existence may be political, but everything else about me is pretty much like,
I feel you, honey.
Like I'm the totally bog standard. I'm a white cis straight man. I'm probably, we could make the joke that I'm the most hated majority, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be there to support these people. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but I've been in discords that are mainly gay and mainly trans and things like that, where I was a small voice and certain people were not appreciative of it, and things like that. And it doesn't mean that just because I am in that box that I'm in that box. Just because I look like all the people who have picked on you your entire life doesn't mean that I'm the person that's going to pick on you. And we need to reach out amongst all of us and build these bridges and let everybody know it doesn't matter what you look like, who you look like, or what the fuck you do in your bedroom. We're all here to help each other. And if we don't get together and we don't do this activism and be more productive through everybody, try and do a wee bit as much as we can, nothing's going to change.
Right. Yeah. And
So
you
my-
willing to put yourself out there and align yourself with these other movements, and that just goes for everybody. That's not specifically to you. Don't even worry about that. You're good, MathPig. Don't worry.
Living in Georgia, there's a little bit more racism that I'm used to. The Confederate flags and all that stuff. And my son is always, he's never really cared about color and whatnot, but I remember the first I think it's one of his first days of high school. He just walked in the house, came into my room, and went, "Fucking white people." I mean, my kid is super white, like in color, but most of his friends honestly are Hispanic. He just we lived in Tucson. He spent a lot of his childhood in Tucson, so he had many Mexican friends, and he just he can't. A lot of the kids in our town tend to, especially the white kids, tend to kind of lean toward their parents' perspective on things. So unfortunately, many of the white kids are racist pricks, and walk fucking white people, and just close the door and walks away.
Not to make anything, obviously it's not as comparable as the problems over there, but we are, excuse me, I'm in Northern Ireland here, and I can remember being in high school, and we're in religious education, like we have RE class in high school, and you know, obviously you can sit where you want on the table, and you've got the Protestants on one side and you've the Catholics on the other, and then you've me in the middle of the Catholics, because they didn't cure and the Protestants took it thick, and I used to sit with the Catholics and like throw paper balls at the Protestants and wind them up because the Catholics didn't cure, and it fucking drove the Protestants even more fucking crazy, because it was like, you're on the wrong side. I'm like, there's no fucking side, man, there is no fucking side. You know?
It really shouldn't be. It shouldn't fucking matter either way, whether it be race or religious belief or whatever the fuck. You know, we're all people.
No, absolutely, yeah. We all identify as who we are. We all should be accepted as each other. And I know it's maybe a very Christian thing to say, but you know, you treat each other as you would like to be treated, and it is true.
They say that, but do they really live that?
They don't. That's why most of us in this community have probably, at least in one stage in a conversation with a Christian, have been, you're more Christian than some Christians I know. Yeah, because it's because what you're saying, what they're defining as Christianity, when you actually boil down into it, is more humanism. It's
exactly
just, you know, but
I have a guitar that was my grandfather's, and pretty much my whole entire family, specifically really my dad's side of the family, a little bit my mom's, but my dad's side of the family was all like super liberal, super duper liberal, and I love it. Love it to death. I so love it. I have a guitar that was my grandfather's that has a sticker on it that says Jesus is a liberal, and I'm like, I mean, it's true. It's true. I'm an atheist, but I'm not taking that sticker off. A, because it was my grandfather's, and B, because it's fucking true.
Yeah, I seen a Florida gun company that's actually fucking writing the Psalms on the sides of guns. You know, and the settings on the auto rifle is peace for safety. It was I can't remember what it was, and God save us all for full automatic.
Yeah. Okay.
Why?
Yeah, because he actually said that he wanted to encourage people of his faith to take up arms. He actually said that in the interview.
That's disconcerting. That's very disconcerting. It's like, that's extreme. That's extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you find so many people that are elected officials too, that think like that.
Yeah.
Like, that are convinced that, you know, they're doing the will of God by, you know, trampling over people's rights and shit. And one other thing that I was actually involved with in Texas, which is definitely one of my, it was my baby, basically, was the Texas Democratic Secular Caucus. So they aim to get secular representation in the government, whether it is, you know, local, state, federal government. They aim to, you know, make sure that they are supporting not just people who are atheists, but people who agree with secular values, you know, separation of church and state and comprehensive sex ed, and making sure that everybody's taken care of. Give me half a second. I have to clock back in really quick. Didn't realize what time it was. Just got to do this real quick.
Absolutely flown by. It has absolutely flown by.
Sign in.
That's when I actually texted that too. I was like, this is going by so quick.
It's so fast. And I blather on and on a lot of the time. So it's like,
No, at the end of the day, Susan, this is exactly what it's about. We want to bring more attention to people like yourself, especially women like yourself this month, because there is too many of us white cis males about there all shouting and screaming and things like that, and we want to be more representative of the actual topics that we're talking about. And it would be very unfair if three gays up here sitting to talk about abortion, you know, and things like that, and situations we are allowed to talk about it. I'm not saying that we can't, but it's definitely better to get more representation, and we need to scream and shout about people like yourself, and for the channel in total. You know, go sub to Divine. The link's in the description. Go and do that, because Susan and Nathaniel, great team. Nathaniel knows his stuff. Susan is probably the powerhouse behind the whole thing. We'll always agree with the women.
I'm the creativity side. That's basically what I am.
But goddamn, Susan, you're fucking brilliant. You know it. Yeah.
I did do my very first like real solo video was about leaving the faith as a Christian influencer. So I talked about like Josh Harris and Megan Phelps Roper and a guy who just left, John Steingard, and sort of, you know, told their stories and what they faced after they left and how people reacted around them and everything. And, you know, oftentimes it's really, really difficult, not just for regular people, but for people who have had Christianity and as basically their profession for such a long time, you know, basically however fucking long it's been for a lot of them. They have so many more things that they have to take into consideration. And I won't give any spoilers because it's a really good video, so y'all should go and watch it because, you know, I'm very, very proud of it. So, woo!
Absolutely.
But yeah, that one was a lot of fun to